President of FAUBAI, the Brazilian Association for International Education, an organization which gathers over 220 SEOs from Brazilian higher education institutions, private and public sector from the 5 regions of Brazil. One of our aims is to promote and foster the internationalization of Brazilian higher education institutions. It's our pleasure to have each of you with us to discuss the streamline of process and internationalization with 2 specialists on the matter, Maria Norton from the University of Southampton, UK, and our former president, José Celso Freire Jr. from UNESP, Brazil. Thank you to you both for being with us today. The partnership of FAUBAI with the British Council has been very intensive, and we have generated many fruits, among them the Guide of English as a medium of instruction in Brazilian higher education institutions, which can be accessed at the FAUBAI website. And a new project current under development about the assessment of evaluation of the internationalization of Brazilian higher education institution. So we wish to strengthen this partnership to our mutual benefit, and I wish you all a wonderful afternoon. Vera, please.
Thank you, Madalena. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. And it's a great pleasure, a great honor to be joining this project, a series of webinars in partnership with FAUBAI, British Council. We've been working with the Internationalization Agenda in Brazil for the past years, since 2017, more strongly under University for the World. And for us, the internationalization agenda has been a priority in terms of how we can bring universities together and think about making this, the internationalization, not only something that can change the higher education system in Brazil and in the UK, can promote more connections between both countries, but also how can we ensure that this is sustainable? How can we ensure that the processes that are established, they are the most efficient possible, and that we ensure that the future generations that we have in our institutions, they are benefited from it, and that we can make this the internationalization process benefit not only those who participate directly, but the larger academic community in our institutions. So it's a real pleasure to be here, to welcome you all who've joined us this afternoon, who've been participating in this webinar series. It's a real pleasure to have Professor José Celso with us, and to have Maria Norton as well, Southampton, and UNESP are amazing partners for British Council and for the Internationalization Program, have been in our projects many times. So thank you both for giving us your time, your insights. And I would also like to say that we are interested in also promoting other opportunities in Brazil for the higher education sector. So we have this project that I was actually promoting here using this time, the FameLab. It's a science communication competition. Many institutions here today have students, researchers who joined FameLab as competitors, and we're gonna have FameLab on TV. So TV Cultura is gonna show FameLab this Sunday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I invite you all to watch it. It's amazing to see these young scientists communicating and bringing science to a larger audience. And we have also a new call open for cooperation between Brazilian and UK scientists. So we have the Researcher Links Challenge grants. It's not Newton Fund, it's funded by the British Council fully. And we will have grants of up to £50,000 that will support projects. It will support virtual workshop plus fund pilot within the idea of climate change. We are really keen to have many proposals from Brazil. So it's a global call from Latin America. Brazil is the only country that's participating in this. And we are really keen to stimulate partnerships between UK and Brazilian scientists that look at interdisciplinary subjects connected to climate change. So this is the link for it. It's the subscriptions, applications by the end of month, by 27 November. And we really like you who are here to look at this and disseminate in your institutions. I think it's really important that we stimulate partnerships in all levels in our agenda of higher education, internationalization. So thank you all. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to hear from José, Celso, and Maria. Thank you. And thank you, FAUBAI, for all the partnership, Maria Leonor, and André, of course, our amazing moderator for this afternoon. Thank you.
Okay, so we are grateful for the welcome speeches of the president of FAUBAI and the senior manager of British Council Brazil. I am André Duarte, Director of the International Affairs Office at Universidade Federal do Paraná, UFPR, Brazil, and I will be moderating this webinar. Today, we are hosting the second webinar of the International Talks webinar series, jointly promoted by British Council and FAUBAI. Okay, there will be 4 webinars from October to December this year, always with speakers from British and Brazilian institutions. The theme of today's webinar is Streamlining of Processes and Internationalization. We have received registrations from Brazil, Argentina, Mexico, Uruguay, South Africa, Ireland, Germany, the United States, and the UK. Questions can be sent through the Q&A space that is on the right at the bottom of the Zoom screen. For other information and general comments, please use the chat space. The questions, or a selection of them, will be answered at the end of the presentations. We invite everyone to answer a brief evaluation that will appear at the end of the webinar. There are 4 very short multiple choice questions, very simple and quick to answer, but of great importance for the organizers. So, at the end of thank you in advance for your minute to answer the evaluation of the poll, the participants who need a certificate must sign it. So let's introduce our speakers today. Maria Norton, Senior International Partnerships Manager, University of Southampton, UK, and José Celso Freire Jr., Associate Provost for International Affairs, São Paulo State University, UNESP, Brazil. Let's start with Maria Norton. Please, Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, André. Thank you, FAUBAI. Thank you to the British Council. Yes, I'm Maria Norton. I'm here in Southampton, and one of my passions is international relations. And that's why in my work, I drive international engagement at the University of Southampton. So I have a PowerPoint to support my talk today. I expect I'll talk for about 15, 16 minutes approximately. And as André says, questions at the end after José Celso has done his presentation too, please. But feel free to write away in the chat. I'll check that after I've finished. So, Lily. Yep, Lily. Okay, perfect. I'll give a snapshot of Southampton, first of all, and then I will share with you information about our strategy, especially our international vision. I cannot talk about internationalization without talking about internationalism. And then I will draw on the collaboration that the University of Southampton has with UFMG in Belo Horizonte, thanks to the Universities for the World Award that the British Council, that we won last summer. So, yep, there's a gap there, that's fine, the arrow, keep it there. That's good. The University of Southampton, no, Lily, stop, thanks. Okay, University of Southampton. We are a large research intensive university. We have over 100 years history. Actually, last year was our centenary year and the centenary building went up. So we actually have 100 buildings across our campuses. We had about 24,000 students last year, of which a quarter, so about 1 in 4, are international students. When you look at undergrads, that ratio it's lower, but in postgrads, especially those on the taught master's programs, it's much higher. We have a lot of international students. Looking at our staff, 6,000 staff approximately, and well over a third are international. So we have a lovely, diverse campus, diverse student body and staff too. We also have a global community of alumni, almost 250,000 alumni across the world for the University of Southampton. In fact, I am one of those. I'm an alumna, and I came back to support what we do in the international space. We've been going up in the rankings as well. We were placed 90th worldwide in the QS rankings. So I've just been giving you a range of stats there, or numbers, because these are actually the indicators, some of the indicators that are used when we look at internationalization. And I know that's a key element that we need to focus on. So our purpose, the University of Southampton's purpose is to create a better world. And we have a strategy to direct us. And within that strategy, we have an international vision. So I know Lily is dying to click again. Go for it, Lily. Click and click. There it is. Okay, thank you. I'll give you 6-7 seconds just to read through and think about the key words that you see in that strategy before I explain. Okay, so fast reading. Yeah, our international vision is to be a leading global institution. I mentioned our position in the QS rankings. We're 90th in the world. We're also highly placed in the Times Higher Education rankings, for example. We have many partnerships, hundreds of partnerships, and we want to focus on select high-value partnerships. And that's what we've been doing with WFMG, for example. So we really want to open up how we engage with our partners and open up the opportunities for students. So that's through exchange agreements, and open up the opportunities for researchers, especially early career researchers, and especially now that we're all remote, working from home and don't have the opportunities for those face-to-face conferences and so on that build your networks normally. Also, another key word I'm going to pull out from that vision is at the end. As I mentioned with the statistics I provided, well over a quarter of our student body is international, and that figure rises much more when we look at our staff. That diversity is something that contributes to greater creativity, more robust decision-making. I mean, these are things that come through, you know, reports like the World Education Forum's work report, for example. So these are elements that we really value at Southampton. And if we look just now at internationalism and internationalization, I think I'm talking about an approach and a process, being and doing. There's also this global mindset. We're in the business of nurturing global citizens, right, at universities. And this is about having an openness, a curiosity in others, and viewing differences with interest, and seeing obstacles as something that we can learn, opportunities to learn. And it's this mindset that really is part of internationalism, and is definitely something we need more and more nowadays. And it ties in then to internationalization. That's the process that we've got going at universities through pillars like the vision, for example, through our governance structure, which I'll touch on as I get into the actual case study. And then at the bottom, so the case study, I'm going to talk about the collaboration we've been specifically doing with WFMG. And always we have to ask ourselves questions when we start new projects. So at the bottom or in each slide, I've got a question in red, highlighted in the red border. What are the benefits? Let's see. So Lily, go ahead and click. Thanks. Here's a happy family picture. This is when we received the delegation from WFMG in November, and I arranged for them to meet Brazilian students that are at Southampton. So most of the people around the table are a couple of undergrads, quite a few postgrads, postdocs that come from the University of Estadual de Campinas, University of Sao Paulo, and then of course our friends from FAUBAI. You can possibly spot me in between the men on the left or right of the screen, whichever way the screen's gone for you. So the man in the tie is the Dean of International from FAUBAI, Professor Aziz. It's important to note the constituents. Here in this delegation, we had 3 people that represented 3 very different constituencies across the university. So when we're doing these international projects, we want to be involving different parts of faculties, the central services, and so on. So at the head of the table is Flavia. She's from the International Office Administration at FAUBAI, or Missões. And then the academic is the lady in the lovely red jumper, Ana Larissa. And she is a researcher and a teacher at FAUBAI in the Language Centre. So they represented the different constituents that were very important in developing internationalization in FAUBAI. And yes, we have a mission there at the bottom. It's all about connection. It's about networks, of course, and developing these. And at the top, that objective, that was one of the key objectives of their week-long visit. And we're now going to dive into 2 key aspects of the work we were doing in this project. So Lily, please click. Thank you. All right, so research mobility, and then I'll look at staff and students, and then I'll wrap up with communications. On the research front, maybe I should just touch on governance. At the University of Southampton, we have 5 faculties, and of course we have a dean in charge of the faculty, and working with them, we have associate deans for international. And working with them, we have directors of international who head up the different schools, sections that we have. So as you can see, there's kind of a funnel that we have within the hierarchy at the university on the academic side, and also even for the sort of executive decisions at the top in the Vice Chancellor's office. And then we have the sort of central office as well, with which I'm a part, professional services. So we all work together to try and, share knowledge about the partnerships we have and to build engagement and really to grow the opportunities for our staff and students. And we do this through research and mobility. The mention there of the curriculum, of course, there's mapping that goes on when you want to have shared programs, whether that's 2+2, 3+1+1, and so on. The key thing with FAUBAI and Southampton, before we started this project, we looked at what do we already have before we can build on it. And in fact, there's a nexus of activity between the Faculty of Social Sciences and the Faculty of Medicine. So both faculties had had more than 10 years already of great work, collaboration between the 2 institutions. If I just take medicine, for example, that was the focus on infectious diseases. That started more than 10 years ago. A young researcher from FAUBAI came to Southampton on a grant, a research grant, started up a new research project in the labs here. This snowballed into a more solid research program, which then won more funding, which then developed into even further research, further activity. A delegation from Southampton went to FAUBAI in Belo Horizonte, setting up workshops, capacity building, and so on. And then last year, they hit a big win, basically, where they won, it was in the £1 million range. So you can see that's kind of a template for how these research collaborations build from the initial academic to academic, who then involves other colleagues and grows the work they're doing to really achieve something big, of great impact. So that's something we're now trying to be more strategic about, and with this project and with matching of colleagues across faculties and in more specific, other specific areas of expertise, we can try to do that. Mobility as well, we want more mobility. So as you can see, actually the action points at the bottom of this slide, one of the action points that we took immediately upon having had the delegation visit in November was to really agree on how we could make mobility happen across all our faculties, not just the one faculty that it had been focused on in the past. So this is again about opening up the opportunities for international experiences. Number two is back to the governance I was mentioning and the sort of sponsorship from senior colleagues and being more strategic about what are the further opportunities to deepen the relationship. Number three in the actions, we came up with a shared chair position between the two institutions. So alternate years, we would have a senior researcher visit and share their expertise and see what comes from that. One of the other measurements we do look at in internationalization is co-publications, in fact. So, you've heard about what we could do with medicine, for example, and then there's a Faculty of Social Sciences, and that's more about population studies, a lot of work there, Professor Sabu Padmadas. The co-publications between the two institutions, you can check this on sites like SciVal, which is run by Elsevier. We've got over 100 between Southampton and FAUBAI in the past 5 years. So that shows it's a healthy, robust relationship to build on. Final point on this slide before I go to the penultimate bit, the P's of P's that I've popped there in the third line, partners of partners. This is about growing our networks and seeing what else might we create. And as part of the e-learning project that is about the award that we're actually delivering on, we actually want to look at co-creating a MOOC, a massive open online course. And so when FAUBAI came back for a visit in February, because the Vice Chancellor came over, we had lunch with the CEO of FutureLearn. So that's the UK's platform for MOOCs. In the States, Coursera is more well known. Anyway, so this was all about just trying to see what could we do together. For staff and students, though, there's more specific actions. If we go to the next slide, Lily. Thanks. Yeah, so within the e-learning project, again, that red box, our focus was about digital education. So really useful right now that we're all at home, really key. And so within the project, the capacity building element was drawing on experts at Southampton that had been involved in the MOOC. And I have put the link here towards the bottom there on FutureLearn. That's the site to go to, where you can find thousands of free courses, typically of 4 to 6 weeks long, typically 2 to 3 hours a week of effort required. So very accessible, I think. EMI is the title of the MOOC we used. So EMI meaning English as the medium of instruction. If you just pop in EMI on the FutureLearn site, the course will appear with the University of Southampton logo. And it's a course that's had over 100,000 participants already. So going strong. In this project, we used that course as the baseline. So basically the beginning point for administrative staff, essentially, to get a handle on what does internationalization look like? What are we talking about? What are intercultural competencies? Because until you spell it out, you don't know if you're on the same page, right? And if you're going to actually build something, you need to be aligned before you can actually take any steps forward. And that's something with this project that I certainly tried to do by discussing with colleagues at FAUBAI. You can imagine we did a needs analysis. We set up a steering committee to be able to develop the project plans and then to take forward the different activities in the project. So again, key elements to remember when you're putting together a new collaboration. Facilitators in training, yeah, that was an element for legacy and for sustainability. As Vera mentioned in her introduction, with these projects, it's seed funding, which permits some travel, which permits some training we wouldn't otherwise perhaps have funds for. So it opens up a new opportunity, but we need to make it something sustainable that doesn't keep needing more money to make it happen again and again. So this training up or upskilling has been a key part of the project. And happily, we've been able to continue with that because obviously we're all online. So, so that has actually worked and we've been able to continue. Then number 2, I'd like to just draw on what's happening with internationalization at home. So with students on campus, what can we offer them? The ones that don't have the chance for mobility, perhaps at the moment, although of course there is now virtual mobility, but that's for another talk, I think. We have at the University of Southampton over 300 social clubs, and a number of them are cultural clubs. So that's one way to get exposure to different cultures, different ways of thinking, different perspectives, and to keep nurturing that global mindset. We have great events. The Faculty of Social Science run a lovely food fair typically in November, typically around about now. We'd all be meeting and having food from different parts of the world and dance and singing, music. And then we have a world fair in March, again, encouraging different cultures just to share cultural artifacts, I'll just say, to put it in a quick word. Within the actual project, though, we had the training up of admin staff going through the program, the MOOC, and actually having the opportunity to think, right, how would I deliver that if I was responsible for telling colleagues about internationalization? So that's developing, and that's what we mean by co-creation. We're looking at how can we create content together that bridges the UK and Brazil. So that's something for a future iteration of this project. And it's basically going to be a sort of, we want to come at a point where we're ready to put forward a proposal for other funding to support this new MOOC that we could create, for example. So finally, I'm going to wrap up with a few pictures to show where we're at. Lily, one more time. Thanks. Oh, there'll be 2 clicks coming. Okay. Yes, thank you. There we are. Communications are vital when you're doing an internationalization project. As we know, it's about keeping colleagues briefed and keeping your community informed and trying to engage colleagues beyond those with the direct responsibility for international. Here, this range of tweets come from the week that FAUBAI were visiting. So again, that first picture, there we are with the different constituencies from the university, from FAUBAI, visiting us to see how we do what we do. I'd arrange visits for them with over 50 colleagues. So yeah, 50 colleagues from the 5 faculties, from central services, to get the full picture of all the different activities going on, to get ideas, spark ideas for new things to do back home in Belo Horizonte. The picture in the middle, yeah, we're especially pointing to Brazil. I think I just about managed, but it's hard when it's behind you. Anyway, this was part of working with the School of Education at the University of Southampton. And then the final tweet there, that's our Vice-Chancellor, Mark E. Smith, CBE. He was new then, he just started in October. So there we are in November. And I'm mentioning him because he really is supportive of international engagement. And that's something also, you need your supporters, your advocates, and you need to get them on side for sharing in the communications. So this is something that I was very mindful of and that I planned for. So communications, not just through Twitter, we use Instagram mainly for students. And then of course we have publications, internal publications for staff monthly, and then publications externally every 3 months, where of course I placed pieces working with colleagues about the visit and about the growing, the broadening of our working relationship. So basically initiatives like the British Council's Universities for the World are vital in stimulating closer working with international partners across borders. And I'll stop there because I look forward to questions after the next presentation. And I understand that next, José Celso will talk about his perspective of internationalization. Please, José Celso.
Hello everybody. I would like to thank the British Council for the invitation and also FAUBAI. I will, just a minute, will share my screen. Then my name is José Celso, as André announced it, José Celso Freire Jr., and I'm the Associate Provost for International Affairs at São Paulo State University, here in the state of São Paulo in Brazil. UNESP, for our international colleagues, is a public state-funded university in the state of São Paulo. Just some numbers, we have about 50,000 students, being about 16,000 graduate students, 3,000 faculty, 5,000 non-academic staff. We award every year about 1,200 PhD diplomas, and UNESP is responsible for about 9% of all the scientific publication in the country. My presentation today will be a little bit different for those presented by Maria. I will talk to you about how we count on information systems to support the implementation of our internationalization process. Then I will start by presenting the strategic internationalization plan that was developed when we submitted our print project to CAPES, was finished at that time. After, I will talk to you, I will give to you a general overview about the information systems at UNESP. Then I will talk about different systems that we use to support our internationalization strategy. And I will finish with some final remarks. Then let's go. This is, in a picture, our strategic internationalization plan. It was built with 3 pillars: global talents to develop academics, global competencies; research to increase the impact, social and scientific impact with the science produced by the university, and with a very, at that time it was innovative, we are very linked to the Sustainable Development Goals, as I will present in the next slide. The third pillar is a partnership. Then the strategy is built considering a different organization for partners, and from this organization, with those partners, we will seek excellence. We have 2 bases: transversal topics and indicators. Then in one slide, this is the strategic internationalization plan of UNESP. As I mentioned, the Sustainable Development Goals is a driver to our internationalization strategy, to our development. We organized the strengths of the university around the Sustainable Development Goals. Then, for example, actions for undergraduate studies, for graduate, postgraduate studies, for research, they should show how they are linked with the Sustainable Development Goals. And here you have the 8 themes that we defined as our strengths and that are present in our print project, the project that we submitted to CAPES, getting the second highest budget in the country among the 36 selected universities. Then we defined 8 themes, and you can see here: basic science at the edge of knowledge, biodiversity and global change, health and wellness, rural societies, bioeconomy, sustainable development, and materials and technology. If you want to take a look in this strategic internationalization plan, you can use this QR code. I believe FAUBAI will put the presentations in the website, then you can access it after this webinar, or you can use this this link that I present here. You can, in this link, you can access all the internationalization plan with much more details than I'm presenting now. Then let's move. I'll talk now about, I'll give you a general overview about the information systems used at UNESP. And I will start by explaining the policy we use for the development of those information systems. Then we develop only open systems. We use only free technologies like Java, like Linux, like Postgres for the database management system. All systems are developed internally by teams at UNESP. We organize this development in a central development committee. And I forgot to mention, UNESP has 24 campuses with 34 schools in the state of São Paulo. Then we have different groups in different campuses working under the supervision of the Central Development Committee for the development of the information systems used at UNESP. Here you have in a picture all the systems that we use. I will not talk a lot about this. I will just mention that we have systems that are under development, the blue ones. We have systems that were developed in the last 4 years, the green ones. We have a system that was expanded in the last 4 years, the gray ones. For some systems, we had the cooperation of some partners to develop, for example, from cooperation from CNPq or cooperation from CAPES, and other systems are external systems. Our systems are connected to the governments of São Paulo government systems, for example. Then it's everything integrated. And I will talk to you about some of those systems and the interaction that we have to put in place our internationalization information systems. Then let's start to talk about some of those systems. Starting by the system responsible for the mobility of students. This system is used for the management of incoming and outgoing mobility. We started with undergraduate mobility, and now we are finishing the implementation for the postgraduate mobility. But everything is done on this system. We open calls, students upload documents, and as we can define the workflows for each call, we can say that one professor from here, another staff from there should answer, should interact with the calls. Then the system is organized in that way. It is totally integrated with other institutional systems. Then students, when they use, they don't need to provide a lot of information. Those information will be retrieved from other institutional systems. The development pathway, when we started this development about 11 years ago, we started by proposing some institutional regulations. I know that Brazilians, my colleagues from here, from Brazil, they know that in Brazil, we need to have regulations to run the university, what we call resoluções. Then we started to develop those regulations for outgoing, for incoming, and for double degrees. To do that, we interact with all actors, staff, professors, sectors in the universities linked to the process of mobility. And finally, this regulation was approved by the University Senate. Then, with this regulation approved, we started the implementation of the system and to use it with our training our staff. It is usual that we have people changing from a service to another service. That every year we have sessions to train people that will use the system. Let's talk about another one, the system for partnerships, to manage partnerships. Then in this system, we manage all the international partnerships and agreements at the country, because my service here is also responsible for the agreements with companies in Brazil, for agreements with city halls, with industries in Brazil. Then all external relations of UNESP is managed in this system. To do that, also the user, not the user, but the responsible for the system can define some workflows telling that this agreement should be analyzed by this service, and by this service. And after everything runs automatically. One important aspect is that this system is aligned with the partnership structure that was proposed in the Strategic Internationalization Plan. If you remember, one of the pillars of our internationalization strategy is partnerships. Then this system for managing partnership is aligned with the structure proposed in the plan. As we can define the workflows, the academic vice presidencies could evaluate the proposal depending if they are linked or not to the subject of the document that will be analyzed. Development pathway is quite similar to that one that I presented for mobility. Then with some help from the legal office, we proposed a new regulation for partnerships, trying to have less bureaucracy. And it shows now that we reached this goal. Then we are expending less time with this new regulation and with the system that was developed than we used it to have in the past. Then after the system was implemented following this regulation, and again, training and training and training. Let's talk about another system, a very important one. In reality, we are developing a portal to manage our Copyspring project. I believe all Brazilian institutions and even the international ones that are here with us this afternoon, they know about the Copyspring, that a program that was launched by CAPES in 2017, selecting 36 universities. Then we developed a system, a portal, to manage our Copyspring project. I will show you some functionalities offered by this system. But through this system, we can access all grants, scholarships, and missions. We can access the products of the different faculty working with Copyspring funding. For example, scientific articles, the counterparts of our partner universities, joint supervisions, foreign language disciplines offered, different products. Maria mentioned SciVal. Then our system is integrated with SciVal, and I will show you one functionality that we can have in this system. The two main goals, then guide UNESP managers, then understand better, prepare a report that we will send to CAPES, but manage our Copyspring project. But also transparency in the use of the benefits granted by CAPES. Some of the functionalities. Here, it is in Portuguese, I'm sorry. You can see the main page of this portal. It's under development, but we have a lot of functionalities now. In reality, the first report for the first year that we submitted to CAPES was presented using this system. Let's show you some of the information. As I mentioned at the beginning, we organized our strengths in 8 themes. And here you can see for each one of the themes, the number of articles that were published, the number of books, the counterpart of our partners, projects submitted to funding agencies, number of co-supervision disciplines offered in English, and different events organized in each one of those different themes. But you can also take a look in the papers that were published by the researchers working in the Copyspring project. You can select the articles by theme or by projects. The Copyspring asked, sorry, asked a university to organize our proposals in themes and projects. Then here you can see the articles published by theme and project. You can see our strategy with our Copyspring is funded in only two different approaches. One is to create international research networks, and this is a bottom-up approach. Then our faculty propose the partners for the network, and another one is what we call global alliances. And for this approach, we here at the main administration, we try to push partnerships with some of our strategic partners. In this slide, you can see, for example, the number of international networks that we have in each one of the 8 themes that are used in our print program. And you can also see how many scholarships were used by each one of the different 8 themes. Here, you only have numbers for the first year of the project. Here you can see where our students and faculty are going. You can see that United States is #1 with a huge number of people going to Canada, Europe, and Australia. Here, I will show you this connection with the SciVal. With our print project, we are trying to increase the number of international partners, international joint publication, but also the field weight citation impact. Then here, you can see the evolution of the number of the international collaboration, but also the field weight citation by years. Then just take a look in this short film. Then from 2017 to 2020, you can see that the number of international partners is growing, as well as the field weight citation impact of papers produced in each one of the 8 themes used in our print. We have different integrations like this one that are used in the portal. Another system is the research portal. Then here I am presenting to you the result for one of our researchers, Professor Sergio Ferraz Novaes from our Theoretical Physics Institute. As you can see, with a H-index of 112, it is a great researcher. But if you can look in the presentation, in the system, in the portal, for information about any faculty at UNESP, but also for topics. Then, for example, if you take a look, if you ask for who is working in theoretical physics, you have a list of people at UNESP working in theoretical physics. Here you can, you have a QR code in which you can access this portal and or using the link that I presented. The system is a BI system, then a business intelligence system that works with internal systems like graduate system, undergrad system, human resources, but also Scopus, Web of Science, Google Scholar, but interacts also with information from CAPES, CNPq, FAPESP to show all this information that I presented in the last slide. The last system that I will talk about it is this one. We are developing a portal, a system, a business intelligence system to manage all the internationalization process of the university. It is developed with partially funded by the British Council and is co-developed with the King's College London. Then a part of this system is developed under this partnership with King's and the British Council. It will be a tool for management and decision-making about everything linked to the internationalization of the university. It gets input from all actors involved with the internationalization process. I will show you in the next slide. It will offer a consolidation of institutional indicators for internationalization. Then specifically, this partnership with King's is focused on the question of institutional indicators for internationalization. And it is integrated with several institutional systems, as you can see here. Then again, all the academic systems, human resources, but also the UNESP repository. It interacts with, for example, the institutional curriculum, Brazilian institutional curriculum offered, developed by CNPq, but also with Sucupira, with the system that is used by the postgraduate programs in Brazil to send information to CAPES. It interacts with FAPESP, which is the state-funded agency, Web of Science, Google Scholars, Scopus, to produce reports, graphics, and ad hoc queries that could be presented to this BI system. Final remarks, then I would like to remember that, at least in Brazil, the development of systems should rely on institutional resolutions or resoluções. To build those resolutions, we need to interact with all sectors connected with the functionality of the system. And just some results. You can see that those systems that I presented support the institutionalization of the internationalization process of UNESP, and it helps with the management and decision-making of this process, offering centralized international data and managing the partnership decisions. Then everything is developed considering the partnerships, and the systems that are presented in some way help us to manage those decisions. It's all. Thank you. If you have questions, I will be here to answer.
Okay. So thank you very much, both for both presentations. And let's now go to the questions. So I have selected some questions that have appeared at the Q&A box. So let me just start with a question posed by Mr. Richard Brunt. He says, thank you, Maria, for a very interesting presentation. What do you find to be the main barriers and challenges in terms of the institutional approach to delivering internationalization?
Yeah, thank you, Andre. So I tried to type out an answer there. One of the challenges we have is actually the formalizing of the partnerships in agreements. So we depend on a legal department for that, who are overwhelmed because we do have hundreds of partnerships. Whence this sort of strategy and focus on the high value partnerships that I touched on. So we also need to be very mindful of keeping the relationships warm with our partners, which we've tried to do in this period of lockdown that we've got in the UK. We haven't traveled anywhere since March, basically. So Thankfully, many of our partners do have internet access and devices, so we've arranged a range of meetings to try and keep things warm, but it is challenging getting agreements formalized. It's also challenging getting all the information together in one place about activity in the partnership. So all the international activity, whilst we can look things up on SciVal exactly and get a picture of co-publications, for example, there's a lot of other detective work that I find myself doing to understand what's going on in our partnerships. We have partnerships with numerous universities in Brazil, but we don't have that all captured on our central database because a lot of it's down to individual relationships, which is important. That's really definitely the spark. You know, when you meet somebody at a conference, especially I think for academics, particular fields that you spark something off, you agree to start a new project and you get funding and it develops. So it's how do we sort of make sure that there's something in place where they have to report back to us. That's challenging. And even when, I run a partnerships award system. So every year until this year, because it was supporting travel, with this award, we invited early career researchers to apply to go and visit partner universities to carry out specific research and for senior colleagues too. And one part of it was reporting, of course, a mid-year report and an end-of-year report, but trying to get those reports in, even if we have colleagues, have signed off papers, yes, I would do this, doesn't always happen. So it is very challenging trying to be on top of all that's going on.
Okay, so there's also...
Andrea, I would just like to add something. And before, maybe I forgot to mention, some of our colleagues, they don't know what is CAPES. Then CAPES is one of the federal agencies that in Brazil is responsible for the postgraduate system. Then they evaluate and they fund the postgraduate system in Brazil. And CAPES is responsible, is the funding agency for this PRINT project that I mentioned in my presentation. Then the PRINT project was announced by CAPES in 2017. And the main goal was to help internationalization of Brazilian higher education institutions, but also with a huge focus on increasing the impact of the science, the social and scientific impact of the science produced by the universities in the country. Then in 2018, they selected 36 higher education institutions in the country. And for example, Andrea's university and mine, UFMG that you mentioned, Maria mentioned, are 3 of the 36 universities that were selected. I just would like to talk a little bit about partnerships, because in the international offices, in the global offices, I believe we need to try to capture individual partnerships and try to develop those partnerships as institutional partnerships. Then, as I briefly mentioned, in our PRINT strategy, we have 2 approaches. One is to build international research networks. Then for this one, the researchers, they propose the partners. But in the global alliances that we have 8, and Richard from Birmingham he knows very well. We worked about 3 months to have this solid link. Even if we have been working with Birmingham for 10 years, now we have the researchers, the global offices working in a global alliance. Then I believe you need to address from 2 ways. One is bottom up, but also top down. It's much hard to develop those top down partnerships. But when you know who will be your strategic partners, you need to identify ways for the development of those strategic partnerships.
Absolutely. If I can add as well to what José Celso has said, that's exactly what I did with the partnership with UFMG. So in fact, over the winter, I arranged meetings between Mario Campos, who I think is like the Dean for Research at UFMG, and our Associate VP for Research. And that way they strategized and came up with 3 different areas of work, the dynamic brain, a sort of biomedical approach, photonics, and another engineering aspect that basically they agreed we're going to put resource and people's time into sparking new projects in those areas, because they identified those 3 areas as being areas of expertise between Southampton and UFMG, that there hadn't been much activity to date. So yeah, so that was a sponsorship of senior colleagues to be more strategic about developing the partnership.
Okay. So there is a question from Mr. Nicolas Maillard. This goes, one question for Maria, another one to Celso. So then, hi, this is Nicolas speaking from Porto Alegre. Do University of Southampton and a partner like UFMG work on a virtual exchange? It would seem a natural extension of their previous partnership. If this is the case, which degrees are involved? Which modalities have they defined? Which technology do you use? Thank you for the presentation. It was highly interesting. Then there's also a question from Nicolas Maillard to Celso. Did UNESP develop its system from scratch, or could you reuse previously existing software? Our problem at UFRGS is the inertia associated to legacy, decades-old systems. That happens here at my university too. So Maria, please.
Yeah, thank you for that. So Nicolas, as I typed something out there, yes, we have virtual exchange. Yes, with UFMG, that was with the summer program. So prior to the pandemic, we would have a couple of students from the Faculty of Arts and Humanities go over to Belo Horizonte in the summer for the summer program. And now, during this year of pandemic, it's been online. As per what universities have gone through right now, everybody pushed online. I think what will happen going forwards is we'll have a hybrid. In other words, there'll be an online preparation because everybody's online right now. Those of us that are fortunate enough to have access to the internet and devices. And just on that point, the University of Southampton did provide hundreds of devices to those students that didn't have any. So there is a sort of an awareness of needing to provide for various sort of situations. Anyway, online, and then there is hope that travel will resume in 2021 for the real life experience, which is unbeatable, as we know. And what did we use? We used Blackboard. Blackboard is the main platform. But now I understand we're trying with Teams as well, because staff have to use Microsoft Teams. And so I understand that even in academic, sort of with the student groups, they're starting to use Teams a bit as well. I'm not sure if that will extend to virtual exchange, but that's what we've got so far. And yes, we've had virtual exchange as well with a few other partners too, because that's the joy of being online. You can reach the world. There are time zones to worry about, but apart from that, yeah, it's more global.
Celso?
Hey, Nicola, I am at UNESP for, I don't know, 37, I don't remember, a lot of time. And from the beginning, I remember all systems were was internally developed. Every system was developed by the internal teams. It changed over the time, then the approach for development, but one group developing one system, everybody developing all the systems. And that time in this Monday, from this president, we reorganized the development team with this coordination of this central committee. and one responsible for each one of the internal systems. But in those groups, you have people from every campus working. It depends on the efforts needed. Then developers, they can migrate from one system to another, depending on the needs that you have. For the internationalization, we developed from scratch. Then about 11 years ago, I convinced the president at that time to hire a programmer analyst to work in the international office. Then from that time, Marcos Antunes, that a lot of you from Brazil know, he is developing. We started with the mobility, undergrad mobility, and with a very small system. And after we are growing, and growing, then this platform for the evaluation of print was developed by Marcos. But now, as we have a lot of things to do, Marcos has some help from other groups. Then we ask for help for other development groups, and the system is under development. But it was built from scratch, from nothing.
Great. So there's two questions coming from an anonymous participant. I will sum up both of them because they're short and they go for both Maria and Celso. First one, what hindrances have you had to start internationalization in the university? And second question, what suggestions would you give us to overcome resistance from staff to internationalization? These are both of the questions. Maria?
Yeah, okay. Let's see if I can remember both questions. Well, I guess they're asking the same thing ultimately. How to involve the broad constituents that we've been talking about, or the stakeholders, the actors, as José Celso said. From what I've seen here at Southampton, it is about trying to offer easy access opportunities, trying to engage the specific colleagues, students, whoever you want to involve in a particular activity, trying to make it as easy for them as possible, and trying to make it attractive, of course. So as we know, always with international relations, food and drink help. If you can offer, even if it's tea and cake, that helps oil the wheels of relationship building. And the opportunity to learn something. I mean, we're at university, so you'd hope that practically everybody here is open to learning, open to new experience. And that's what international offers us. It offers us new perspectives, new horizons, even if we cannot actually permit ourselves travel for whatever reason. At home, there are plenty of opportunities. So I think as I tapped in the answer, you know, the example of our Faculty of Social Sciences World Food event, there was no obligation there. You don't have to bring anything, just yourself, and a willingness to talk to people, meet new people. Of course, there were certain colleagues and students that, you know, worked together and provided food or drink representative of the different countries they came from, or they wanted to, that they've been to. You just need a willingness to get involved. So offer easy events, keep them open. You know, you might be surprised about who might come. One of those 300 clubs and societies we have at Southampton, one of them is actually the Mexican Society, because I think we have probably about 80 plus Mexican students at any one time at Southampton. And the Mexican Society has a fabulous party at the start of the year. Everybody's welcome. And it's in one of the main buildings, one of the buildings on campus, where there is a bar, of course, where you can buy drinks. And apart from a bit of structure at the beginning, where one of our associate deans for international does an opening welcome, for example. Apart from that, it's a social event. There's lots of music, there's dancing, as you can imagine. It's fun. And so students, local domestic students come along, staff. I went to that party last year. Why not? So it's just having exposure. I understand that you mentioned staff resistance. Yeah, I think it's, we have to be mindful of different colleagues, other commitments, home commitments, family, whatever. Maybe they can't come to a party after work, of course. So you need to do things during the day as well. Make it easy access. What might it be? The coffee and cake in the afternoon, for example. The online course that we were doing in the e-learning program that the Universities for the World Award permitted us to do with WFMG. That was online training for a broad range of admin staff. So WFMG managed the cohorts, how they encourage staff to take these programs, but they were things that fit into the working day. So those are sort of elements to keep in mind to try and bring down the barriers, but also appeal to the mission of the university. If we're here to make the world a better place, how else are you going to do it unless you work in collaboration and you learn about each other? Does that answer the question?
Would you like to add something, Celso?
Yeah, Andrea, I want something from a Brazilian perspective, and knowing that for some small institutions, sometimes it's very, very complicated to start. If we are in a very different environment. In UK, you are international institutions because you have a lot of international students. Your professors are international. You receive students from every part of the world. This is not a situation in Brazil. Then sometimes it is complicated to start. Then I would like to suggest some actions that could be done. For example, when I arrived here some years ago, we started with international forums. Then we invited people from all sectors, big forums, about 500 people. Then spending 2 days in a hotel, only talking about internationalization. But from the beginning, explaining to people what Maria just mentioned, the benefits. Because for some of them, they will say, we are spending money. We don't have money even to maintain the universe. And we will talk about internationalization. Then explain to them that not expand, invest this money in internationalization. It is important even for them, but for students, for the country, for everything. Then forums is an important thing. Another action that we implemented was in local internationalization committee in each one of our schools. Then we work very close to those local committees, and they help us in some way to disseminate information. They know much better than us here in the central office. When they receive a call that this professor should be better to answer this call than this professor, that they know the local interests. Then having local committees in each one of the schools is one important thing. And maybe to address a problem that Maria presented, we are developing more and more staff exchange programs. Not this year because of the COVID, but it's expensive, but offering the possibility for your non-academic staff to spend 1 week, 15 days in one of our partners, change completely the scenario in the school where they are. They will be your ambassadors. They will explain people why internationalization it is important. Then just three points.
Okay, then there's another question. This is from Veronica Rodriguez Luna. Thank you very much for your very interesting presentations. Could you please explain a bit more on the process of creating partnerships? This goes both to Celso, and also to Maria.
Wow. Gosh, to think about the beginnings. Can I admit I've been doing this for 2 years only, and obviously 1 year has been a COVID year. So it's challenging from behind a computer screen. Hey, wow, what do you do? I think it's human relationships at the end of the day, isn't it? So we try, as we get to know each other, we try and find out what have we got in common, and what are our interests, and see where is there the overlap, and do we want to do something with that and build something. In terms of getting opportunities out to university colleagues, perhaps that might help if I talk about that, because in my role, in driving international engagement, I do that through networks, and that's why that word is there in my long job title. And so, you know, the University of Southampton is part of a few networks, namely the Worldwide Universities Network. So you can look them up. They're basically, you know, on the website, you just do wun.ac.uk. So that's one resource there are 23 global universities in that network. And so there's plenty of activity going between, and it basically provides a sort of open door for looking at who might I go to if I have an academic saying, I need to work on oceans and I want to see somebody, I don't know, in Australia or New Zealand, or so look to networks. And of course, as we know, our academics have so many networks already because that's part of their career path, building networks. So it's really about, from the central services, how can we support them? So do we have funds that support mobility? Yes, we had some. That Partnerships Award I mentioned, for early career researchers especially, as well as senior researchers. And really right now, because we're all working remotely, it is the early career researchers that we need to be supporting more, and that I think need the services we can provide here in the central services in Missões, about offering networks and flagging up when there are events. So when there are webinars that give early career researchers the opportunities to hear about experts in their field. So through the networks, I disseminate information like that. For example, whenever I hear of something through the networks, I look through LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit, checking what's happening, and I share any updates like that with, again, it's the governance, as José Celso mentioned as well. So I go to our associate deans with this information, and they know who to disseminate it to, or to the doctoral college. So you've got structures within the universities to go to with the specific information that they will then disseminate to the party. So it's building up reasons to get involved with partners. That's how you build partnerships, I think, and trying out projects. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
As Maria mentioned, it's very complex. I will not talk about strategies, but please take a look in the Internationalization Plan that I presented. There, you have a lot of strategies that we are using now to develop, to implement, and to create partnerships. But I would like to give you some tips. First one is why. Why are you looking for a partner? It depends. If you're looking for partners for mobility, it is a kind of partnership that you build. If you're looking for a partner for research, is another kind of partners that you are looking for. Then first, why? And after, who? And after, you need to identify your partner. Then, for example, in our case, I can mention how we build our strategic partnership with the University of Queensland. It started with a visit that I did at the Science.Borders time. Long time ago, I was invited to a mission in UK, in Australia, and I visited the University of Queensland. Visiting, I identified a lot of possibilities. to work with people from the University of Queensland. Then I proposed to them to have discussions, as Maria mentioned. Then getting back to Brazil, we started to organize video conferences at that time to have researchers working together. From this first step, I organized a mission of about 12 researchers from UNESP to expand 12 days, 2 weeks in Australia, not only visiting the University of Queensland, but other universities with I had the same kind of discussions. After these workshops, we proposed to them to come to Brazil, and we organized research workshops here in Brazil. And projects followed, and a nice day, I received a call from the University of Queensland asking us to be the strategic partner here in Brazil. Then, but it's not only those 5 actions that I mentioned, a lot of things happening at the same time. But building trust, we have now a program for exchange of, funded by the universities for exchange of faculty, then a lot of different actions. But why, who, and building trust, I believe, is the way to establish those partnerships. And I'm just thinking from an institutional way, because professors have been doing partnerships from the beginning of universities. Then the most difficult, as I mentioned, is how to take those partnerships that are among professors and have those partners at an institutional level.
Perfect. So we're almost running out of time. So there will be only 2 more questions. One of them coming from Alejandra Fabiola Flores Zamora. And I assume it's going to Celso. About the strategic plan for internationalization, which categories did you consider? Who participated in the design? Students, faculty, staff? Celso?
Okay, I will try to be very.
Yeah.
We do remember I mentioned about those forums that we organized. Then, in my first year as associate provost, I started to organize those forums. Then we organized it every year. We organized a forum, and I started to collect information from those forums. Then everybody participated. Even students, then academics, non-academic staff, people from the administrative service, people from the legal service, people from research services, people from all services in the university. Then after, in 2016, I started to write the plan, but I constantly interacted with the other vice presidents. Then please give me your inputs from that. And it was based in the definition of internationalization for UNESP. Then 6 years after starting, we decided that internationalization for UNESP will be a tool to build excellence. It's longer than that, but this is the definition: a tool to build excellence. Then I started to work with the other vice presidents, asking them, what is excellence for undergraduate? What is excellence for research? What is excellence for community engagement? Considering an international perspective. Then from these inputs, I started to talk to every people at UNESP. We organized 2 SWOT analysis. We applied a lot of surveys to the community to get inputs. And from all those inputs, I wrote the plan that was approved by the Senate of the university very shortly.
Okay, so it's not exactly a question. There's a kind of a commentary, and maybe I'll just read it, and maybe we do not have time to answer it. But it goes like this. It's from Aurora Garcia, and she says, "Hello, thank you both for your presentations. I would like to ask you if you would be open to collaborating with Mexico, meaning creating a UK-Brazil-Mexico partnership. And if so, how could I get in touch with you to do so? We are very interested in research and sustainable development as purposes of internationalization of higher education, even if for now all partnerships are taking place virtually." So maybe it could be interesting if you could just maybe leave your email or connect with Aurora, because I'm not sure you could answer this like right now.
Well, I can just say immediately that indeed the University of Southampton has working relationships with a number of universities in Mexico. By virtue of that network I mentioned earlier, we're connected to Tecnológico de Monterrey. So we have a lot of collaboration going with them, and I sort of look after that. And there are numerous other Mexican higher education institutions that we work with. So maybe your institution already works with Southampton. It's one of those things where I don't have all the information in the center, but I bet you there'll be at least one academic here that works with one at your institution. So we need to find that out, I guess. But obviously always go back to that question that José Celso reminded us, why? What do we have to offer each other for mutual benefit? So we need to think about that too. So that's my initial response.
Andrea, I would like, the answer is yes. I publish in the chat the address of the international office, but I would like to mention we already have someone, I forgot who, asked about a virtual exchange. Then I would like to mention the Rede Latam Coil that is managed by Universidade Veracruzana. We will have a workshop, a webinar on November 25th to present the initiatives in Brazil, but Brazilians and Mexicans and universities from Colombia are cooperating through this Rede Latam Coil. I believe Veronica is here, manager of this network. Then there are a lot of possibilities, and all Brazilian universities, they are keen to collaborate with the University of Mexico.
Perfect. So thank you very much. I would like to thank the speakers and all the participants. We hope we can count on your participation in the next webinar of the International Talk Series British Council FAUBAI. Yes, and on Wednesday, November 25th at 3 p.m. Brasilia time, it will be on language policies and internationalization, which will have as speakers Kyria Finardi, professor of the Department of Languages, Culture and Education at Universidade Federal do Espírito Santo, UFES, Brazil, and co-founder and coordinator of the Ibero-America Association for Applied Linguistics, a regional network of the International Association of Applied Linguistics, and Anne Veitch, Senior Consultant, EMI and Multilingual Education, British Council, UK. The webinar will be held in English without translation. We also would want to invite you to the next FAUBAI Virtual Wednesdays, as quartas virtuais da FAUBAI. Yes, and then next Wednesday, November 18th at 10 a.m. Brasilia time on how to manage an international relations office. This webinar will be held in Portuguese without translation. We would also like to give a special thanks to Lilian Teles, Liaison and Project Coordinator at the Pontifical Catholic University of Minas Gerais, PUC Minas, who took care of all backstage that made this webinar possible. Thank you, Lilian. And please let us know your feedback on this webinar by answering the short form that will appear on your screen. Those who need a certificate must indicate at the last question of the poll. Thank you again for attending this webinar. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Obrigada.